Alright, so today I want to make a video about Code Vein, but it's a kind of video that I don't want to make in general because they are kind of negative and this is some sort of rant of the game. I'm going to talk about stuff like some bad decisions that have been made, some bad game design, and what it's kind of doing wrong as a Souls-like game. So, as some of you may know, I'm really a big fan of Code Vein. My channel is all about Code Vein, but I don't want to be that guy who just makes a video about it because it's rewarding for me or something. I really care about this game, and I feel like it's doing a lot of things wrong. And I took 2 days, actually. I actually took 2 full days to look into other Souls-like games like Neo, The Surge, lots of Fallen, and even Bloodborne. And I looked at what they were doing right, what they were doing wrong. I looked at a lot of people's review, what they liked, disliked, and I also kind of had my own opinion about it. Now, for Code Vein, there's it's kind of shady to talk about it because it was still in alpha. It's kind of going out of alpha right now. It has released on its very first build, but generally with this kind of thing you kind of see where the game is going. Of course it can be much better, of course a lot of things can be done better, but you kind of see the concepts, some ideas behind some mechanics or some features that the game has. And I gotta say I want to say that I don't kind of agree with them. I don't really like them as they do not make the game stand out. So I'm going to elaborate as much as I can in this video. So I want to make sure people understand the intention behind the developers when they made Code Vein. And there's this IGN video where they make an interview for the developers, and they kind of explain that they wanted to make a Souls-like game of their own that wouldn't be as harsh and as unforgiving as the Soulsborne series. Like, they don't want the player to be completely broken. They want the player to feel like they can keep going even if it's hard and all that stuff. And they really emphasize on the partner system. Actually, the partner system, I don't have a problem with it. But anyways, for the combat, of course, as a Soulsborne game, as a Souls-like game, you want to really focus the game on the combat. In fact, a lot of people play for the combat. They won't even play for the story. Yes, it's really good if they are interested in the story, but the main focus of a Souls-like game is combat. And a lot of Souls-like game failed at it, and the only one that has actually marked people was Neo. Like, a lot of people really like Neo for what it was. It was really different. It felt different. And unfortunately, when I look at Code Vein, it does worse than the other Souls-like game, even those that failed. And what I mean by that is that the game doesn't feel different from Dark Souls. It mimics Dark Souls, but with less depth in the combat. So, like, for example, let's pick every single one of these Souls-like game. You have, first of all, I'll start we'll go from worst to the best. And then so let's say we have Lords of Fallen. Lords of Fallen it's a Souls-like game. It has the aesthetics of Souls. I would say it does even sometimes better than Souls, I would say. But that's my opinion, of course. But it's really gorgeous aesthetically. And it even has a lot of differences in the combat system. You have that gauntlet that allows you to summon some sort of, I don't know, fire golem and stuff. You even have some sort of armor system where that allows you to sometimes take damage and tank them and beat the hell out of your enemies. But apparently it wasn't good enough because the combat was slow and the game felt too easy sometimes. And also they had no multiplayer, the story was linear, a lot of problems. There was really a lot of problems. The NPCs were awful. So anyways, that was the worst one. But actually, compared to Code Vein, at least the combat was kind of like Dark Souls, but somewhat different, and you felt it in every fight that you had. Now, let's take the Surge. The Surge had this system where you could completely rip off, I don't want to say rip off, but rip the parts of your enemies in order to take them and take the equipment they had. It had a lot of other stuff like finishing, I don't know if it was finishing moves. I think they had finishing moves there. But they had also terrible boss fights, they had terrible enemies, the game was very repetitive, and they had a lot of things like revisiting the same areas, the same dungeons, the same enemies. So a lot of people didn't like it for that, and for other aspects like the controls were very clunky, the game wasn't very responsive, and all that stuff. But that's again, I would say better than Code Vein, because at least they had a combat system that was different from Dark Souls. It still took the basic of Dark Souls, but it changed it to be its own thing, where you can completely rip the parts of enemies and take them and get equipment from them. Now we had Neo. Neo is probably the best Souls-like game. I would say clone, but yeah, it's probably the best one because it's, first of all, it caught the attention of the players by the speed, the change in the speed. The game is extremely fast. It's even like a hack and slash game. It's basically like a hack and slash game. You have combos, you have stances, a lot of things, but it's still focused on the same kind of pattern of Dark Souls, where you have to learn the attack of the enemies, and then you have to study them, dodge, and then attack. And it had quite a big variety of enemies. You had a lot of cinematics. So it was the story once again was linear, but in a good way. They had good storytelling, they had good soundtracks, a lot of good things. The game suffered from a few little things that made it kind of not as good as Dark Souls, I'd say. And then finally you have Bloodborne, which I'd rather not even talk about because it's just the best apparently. So I think Code Vein is below, it's even below Lords of Fallen. Not that Code Vein doesn't have a change in the combat system compared to Dark Souls. They have the gift system, but they also have the drain attacks and the blood veils. But the main issue with Code Vein, the main issue is the intention of the developer. Is the reason they said that they want the game to feel like Dark Souls. They want Dark Souls players to feel at home. They want them to be able to play like they want. Like they don't want them to force the player to use the new system they added. But the problem with that is, if someone has already played Dark Souls and still has Dark Souls, what is the reason to go play Code Vein? And even worse, now you have the Dark Souls remaster that is coming out. You have the Surge 2 that's coming out as well. So what is the point of having Code Vein at this point? So I think they should change a lot of things. They should kind of make the blood veils more important. I think they should make the gift system more important. And in fact, there's huge problem with the right now, the way, even if they release the game like they really want it to be right now, there is a huge problem with the blood veils and the gift system. So the drain attacks, you cannot use the drain attacks and the gifts during a combat. There is no way to use them in the combat. You look at the gift, they take a long time to cast. They're really long. The only scenario where you would be able to use a gift is when I'd say your partner is distracting the enemy, but that won't always be the case. Let's assume that someone's playing the game alone and they really want to play with all the features and all the new mechanics that Code Vein is adding. There's no way they can use a gift during a combat. There's no way they can use a blood veil as well during combat. And yes, the blood veil is part of the combat. You can say when you parry, when you backstab, but those are not, I wouldn't call them, I would call those moves proper to the blood veil. They are more like reskin moves from Dark Souls, where you just backstab or parry. And yes, they add Icar, but that's it. That's not a big addition to the game. That's nothing big. It's not a big focus for the game, and it's not enough to make it feel different from Dark Souls. And it's kind of fortunate because they made God Eater, and God Eater is completely different from Monster Hunter. A lot of people see God Eater and they are like, oh, it's just Monster Hunter, but when you play it, it's absolutely not the same. Like, and that's because of the devouring system. The devouring mechanic is just so important in God Eater. It's the best thing that you could add in a game like that. And in fact, God Eater feels more like a hack and slash game compared to Monster Hunter, which is more slow. It's slower, it's very realistic. You don't have those crazy moves that you have in God Eater. But yeah, so when you look at devouring mechanic compared to the drain mechanic, devouring in God Eater would give you origami bullets. It will also give you the burst state, which increases your attack and your overall action speed. And it's very rewarding. It's a really rewarding move that you can use in combat. It doesn't matter if you have an origami that is extremely fast or extremely slow, you would still be able to use it in combat, because there's a way to quickly use the devouring mechanic, which is by using an action and then there's an input for that to directly devour the enemy without having to charge it. Of course, charging the devour is more rewarding for the player, but having the quick devour is still rewarding as well. In Code Vein, you have the full drain, but there is no sort of quick drain. I think Code Vein needs a quick drain attack, and it should be kind of the same as the devour of the quick devour in God Eater, because you need to really depend on that. You really need to feel like you're doing something different in Dark Souls. I feel like the blood veils are doing the job, but they're still not present in the game. So I think the drain attack should give you the focus state. Now, there's also another problem that I have with Code Vein. Even though they add something like a quick drain attack, even though they do that, the players is still not sensing some sort of depth to the game. It's just some sort of new mechanic that is just, I say, enhancing your character for basically no reason. Like, there's no reason to use a blood veil. Is there an enemy that is probably, I'd say, in a state where they resist basic attacks? Do they have a state where they resist basic attack? Are they completely difficult to kill and you really rely on the blood veil to kill them? No, there's nothing like that. Or also, does this blood veil has this type of attack? Does it has some sort of launch attack? Does it have a range attack? Does it have a very long range attack but that makes you static? Does it forces you to attack the enemy by charging and take damage but you resist dagger or something? I think it would be good if the enemies could enter some sort of state, like I said, that would help them resist the basic attacks, because Code Vein right now is it's really boring. I'd say the combat is really boring. A lot of people are just using the basic attacks. Basically, the combat consists of, you see an enemy, you use the drain attack, they get knocked down, then you just slash until they die. It's just boring. That's just boring. There's nothing going on and there's no depth to it. Of course, you would say, yeah, but it might depend on the enemy. No, it doesn't depend on the enemy. In Dark Souls, you have a lot of things, like you have your weapon, you can parry, you can block, you can roll. And the parry, in fact, is very complicated. You have the weapons. Each of your weapon is really unique. I think a lot of weapons in Dark Souls are unique. They have unique moves. They have a unique ability. There are different ways to wield a weapon in Dark Souls. You can dual wield 2 different weapons. You can wield one weapon with one hand or with 2 hands, and the moves will change. So there's a lot of depth in terms of controls, in terms of the reason why in terms of the approach to the enemies. In Code Vein, there is not. You approach the enemies the same way, you do the same thing to all of the enemies, and that's it. So the game is kind of boring that way. And that's why I want the blood veils to be able to do more than just giving you maybe the focus state, gives you the focus state, but also gives you ichor stocks. So I want the blood veils to do even more than that. I think so. Like, they have this concept of bloodthirst, and I'm surprised they're not using it in the game. In fact, to me, it doesn't make much sense. But at the same time, I feel like, okay, maybe that's my crazy idea, but I feel like something that would be good is to have the bloodthirst system in the game. And as we know, the revenants, they need blood in order to stay conscious, to stay sane, and to not turn into lust. But it's not exploited in the game. I think it should be a mechanic where maybe over time you will lose. There will be a gauge that would start, I'd say, decreasing. There will be a gauge that will start decreasing, and that maybe is the bloodthirst that your character has. And maybe using a gift every time causes your character to suffer from bloodthirst a little bit more. Also, if this gauge goes down to 0, your character dies and there's no reviving. Now, I think what would be good is let's assume that using the blood veil will refill that gauge. Of course, I don't want the gauge to be constantly going down, because that would be kind of annoying to have it going down every time. I think it would be good if the bosses would drop something like they have the blood tears in this game, the blood tears that can satisfy the blood thirst. What if it worked like the Ember in Dark Souls, but in this game, instead of giving you more health and giving you a new state for your character, I think it would be good if the blood tears as an item would probably stop that gauge from decreasing. Instead, it will freeze it until you die. If you die once, then that's it, you lose the blood tear buff, and your gauge starts decreasing again. Of course, it does have to decrease really fast. It can decrease really slowly but progressively, but it will be there. And like I said, using a gift would cause it to decrease even more by a certain amount. But that's the reason why I want the blood veils to be more active in combat, so that you can refill their gauge, you can get more gifts, you can get more icar stocks, but you constantly need to train in order to keep playing. I think it would be good like that. And in fact, it would make more sense to have a partner that uses some gift for yourself, so that you don't have to suffer from the blood thirst, so you can both have something to do for each other. But that's the choice to them. Of course, I'm just giving ideas, but I think it would be much better that way, because it's just too much like Dark Souls. It's just way too much like Dark Souls, and it shouldn't be. Now, of course, there are other things that Code Vein doesn't have and suffers from. Like, for example, the animations. I think the game suffers not from a lack of speed, but a lack of fluidity. The game is absolutely not fluid. It's just completely robotic. You do an action, you stop, then you do another action. You cannot chain actions in this game. And it's not that you cannot chain attacks. You can chain attacks, of course. We see it. It takes of your stamina and all that stuff, but there are some actions that you cannot do. For example, using a gift, you cannot move while using a gift. You cannot move right after using a gift. In fact, you have like a split second where you have to go back to where your character has to go back to its idle animation before they're able to move. That is not a good thing. In fact, it's never a good thing in those games, because you want the game to keep going. You want the player to have full control on its character. I don't think there's a lot of restriction in terms of animation in this game. Like, the only way to stop the restrictions is only by rolling, and I don't think it's a good thing. Rolling is not a good thing to just cancel an animation. The problem with rolling to cancel an animation is like the player is not just fighting against an enemy. It's like they also have to fight against the game. It feels like they're just restrained and they don't want to. And speaking of speed in this game, the developers don't understand that the Soulsborne players, they want a game, they always want something that's faster. And what might happen could mean that a lot of people will just increase the speed as much as they can. Like, they won't do anything else. They'll just play with the fastest build ever because they want speed. They don't want to be slow. They don't want to be restrained. So I guess if they want to avoid that, they should increase the base speed of the game. They should increase a lot of things. Actually, I was talking about fluidity. Both the player and the enemy's lack of fluidity. Like, there's no fluidity in their animations. The player, if they attack, if you just throw a random attack, like just press, in this game it's square, if you press square randomly and you want to move without rolling, you cannot. The player will just go back to its ideal position, to the idle animation before you are able to move. And it's the same for the enemies. They attack once, then it takes incredibly long for them to go back into the idle position before they're able to do anything else. And at that moment, it's really long. What I've seen is that the game is awfully designed for that, because as the enemy is going back in this idle animation, the player is able to just hack through the enemies infinitely, pretty much infinitely, but the only thing that limits them is stamina. That's bad design. the enemies should be able to respond to that and punish the player if they don't manage the stamina correctly. But instead of that, from what I've seen so far, they are just able to keep attacking the enemies until the stamina is down, and even worse, they can keep going. They keep insisting on attacking without getting punished, even though they have no stamina left. So that is bad, really bad design. I think they should change that as soon as they can. But yeah, like I said, Code Vein doesn't feel different from Dark Souls game. It should be different. It should make it feel like they're playing, like someone's playing another game, and it's not. And like I said, a lot of people are not going to play Code Vein if they already have Dark Souls Remaster, which is coming out soon. So yeah, I think it's all that I wanted to talk about. It's a kind of a long video. I'll try to edit it as much as I can, but I really don't like to make this type of video. It's very negative. I just want this game to be good. I just want it to be really unique, like a unique experience. But I hope some of you agree with me. I hope some of you will share good opinions, or some of you may share different opinions. You might disagree with me, but at least try to be fair if you do. I think it's really important for this game because it's a new IP. I think it should have a lot more than just being a copy of another game, and I feel like I trust these developers. I know they can do much better than that, and it's kind of unfortunate because I see Code Vein, I see Galita 3. Galita 3 already looks more polished than Code Vein, just with one trailer. That's how bad I see this game. And it's not that I hate it. I love this game and I want it to be good. I really enjoy every video I make about it. I really like it, but I am afraid that the game itself might be disappointing with the way it is right now. Of course, it's just alpha, it's early game, but like I said, they need 1 hour, only 1 hour to convince a player to keep playing the game. So yeah, so thank you all for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe for more things about Code Vein, and also try to share this video. I hope you could share it. I hope it could reach someone more influent than I am, because I really want this game to be good. And if you agree, of course, it's all if you agree with me. But yeah, so thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.